Google for, what, 25 years now? It's basically been the front door to the entire internet. It feels so inevitable, like it's always been there. But it wasn't. So how in the world did two PhD students create a technology so powerful it would completely redefine the web? Well, the whole story starts with a really strange problem.
Right? Think about that for a second. This is the core paradox of Google's origin story. To build one of the biggest businesses in history, they first had to create something that the giants of the early web, companies like Yahoo and Excite, thought was completely insane. To really get why, you have to meet the minds behind the machine.
So let's meet Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Now, there's this popular myth that they were just a couple of bumbling academics who accidentally stumbled into building a company. Let's just get this out of the way. That is absolutely 100% not the case. These guys were uniquely prepared and intensely ambitious from the get-go.
And when you look at their backgrounds, you really start to see why. I mean, the sheer concentration of technical DNA here is just off the charts. Larry literally grew up surrounded by computer science, and Sergey, he's a math prodigy whose family fled the Soviet Union, was already interning at a major software company before he even got to Stanford. These weren't just random students. They were practically born into the computing revolution.
In this quote right here, from Larry Page himself, it just perfectly illustrates the mindset. This was never some academic project that accidentally became a business. For Larry, the business was the whole point. He knew that to actually change the world, inventing something cool wasn't enough. You had to build a company to make it real. So, what was the big problem they were trying to solve? Okay, you got to picture the internet in the mid-90s. It was this chaotic, disorganized, exploding universe of information. Finding anything useful was a total nightmare. The search engines back then were just awful. They were so easy to trick, by pages that just spammed the same keyword over and over again. And this problem was getting worse, exponentially worse. 723% annual growth. That's just a staggering number. This wasn't some gentle curve. It was a rocket ship taking off vertically. The old way of doing things, like those manually built directories from Yahoo, just couldn't keep up. The web desperately needed an automated way to sort the signal from all that noise.
And this was their breakthrough, PageRank. Instead of just counting keywords, they looked at links. The idea, which they actually borrowed from how academic papers are cited, was just genius in its simplicity. A link from one page to another is basically an endorsement. It's a vote of confidence. And, crucially, a link from a really important page, say the New York Times, counts way, way more than a link from some random blog.
So how did this actually work under the hood? Well, first, they had to build something called a crawler, a program that would literally go out and try to download a copy of the entire web. Just think about that for a second, an insane task. Then their PageRank algorithm would analyze that massive copy, mapping out all the links to figure out an authority score for every single page.
And here is the pivot. You see, their initial project, which was called Backrub, it wasn't even a search engine. It was a system to rank comments or annotations on websites. But then Larry had this crucial moment of insight. Forget the annotations. This ranking system could be applied directly to the web pages themselves to totally revolutionize search.
Okay, so they knew they had something really special. So in 1997, they went around trying to license their technology to the big search engines of the day, like Excite and Yahoo. They weren't even trying to start a company yet. They were just thinking, hey, we'll sell the idea for $1 million and go back to finish our PhDs. But they just ran into a wall.
And here's exactly why everyone said no. This slide just lays out the fundamental conflict perfectly. The web portals back in the 90s, they made all their money from banner ads. So their goal was to keep you on their site for as long as possible, clicking around, generating page views. Google's technology did the exact opposite. It was designed to get you the right answer and send you away from their site as fast as possible. From their point of view, it was a terrible business idea.
This reaction from the CEO of Excite really says it all. Their technology worked too well. It was a direct threat to the entire business model of the internet at the time. By putting the user first, Larry and Sergey had created something the industry wasn't just unprepared for, but was actually hostile towards. So what do? You've been rejected by everyone. They had no choice. If no one would buy their technology, they'd have to build the company themselves. So they renamed the project Google. It's actually a misspelling of Google, the number 1 followed by 100 zeros, and they set out to raise some money.
And the story of their seed round is just pure Silicon Valley legend. It all started on a professor's porch with a $100,000 check written out to a company that didn't even legally exist yet. That check actually forced them to incorporate. Soon after, they met Ram Shriram, who not only invested but introduced them to none other than Jeff Bezos, who matched with $250,000 of his own.
But look, PageRank was only half the story. The second part of their genius, and this is so often overlooked, was the infrastructure. Instead of buying super expensive servers, they built their data centers out of cheap, off-the-shelf PC parts, literally mounted on corkboards. I mean, the individual parts were unreliable, but their brilliant software was designed to expect failure, which made the whole system incredibly cheap and massively scalable.
Okay, so they had the best product on the market and this super scalable infrastructure. But they still had one massive, glaring problem: no business model. They were philosophically against all those annoying banner ads, and their product was designed to send people away. So how on earth could they make any money?
Well, the answer actually came from a competitor called Overture, which had pioneered this pay-per-click auction model. Google adopted it, but then they added a crucial, very googly twist. See, they didn't just sell the top ad spot to whoever paid the most. They created something called AdRank, a formula that multiplied an advertiser's bid by a quality score. This meant that better, more relevant ads could actually win the auction even with a lower bid.
With this new model, which they called AdWords, they just knew they had a rocket ship, and they were so confident they bet the entire company on it. To win this landmark deal to power search for AOL, Google offered them a $100 million revenue guarantee, money they absolutely did not have at the time.
And Sergey Brin was not exaggerating. If the AdWords model hadn't performed the way they expected on AOL's massive user base, that guarantee would have completely wiped them out. It was an all-or-nothing gamble. But it wasn't just about the money. Winning that AOL deal meant winning over millions of mainstream internet users in an instant, and that solidified their path to becoming the undisputed front door to the web.
And this chart just shows you the result of that huge gamble. It paid off, big time. In just 1 year, revenue exploded by over 500%. They had finally found it, the perfect alignment of what was good for users, what was good for advertisers, and what was good for them. They weren't just a search engine anymore. They were a money-printing machine. So what did this all become? I mean, Google started with this noble, almost academic mission to organize the world's information. But in the process of building the business, they ended up creating something far more powerful, a system that could understand and then monetize human intent on a global scale. They didn't just change the internet, they changed the very nature of how we find things, and more importantly, how businesses find us. Which really leaves us with one final question to think about.